Have you ever tried to, manage even just a handful of signups for like a local fitness class?
Oh, yeah.
It can get pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine trying to run an entire gym or a full-blown fitness studio.
I can only imagine.
It's memberships and schedules and payments, and it's just this constant thing, It never really ends.
Absolutely.
So today we're going deep, and we're looking at a company that's really trying to bring some order to all that chaos. We're talking about PushPress. It's this gym management software platform.
Interesting.
And we've gone through their website, and we've also got this incredibly insightful interview with the co-founder and CEO, Dan Uemura.
Okay.
So we're really going to unpack their whole story, how they got started, and how they've grown so much.
Now, I think what's really interesting for you as a listener is that PushPress, it didn't just come out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
It came directly from Dan's own experiences of struggling with the same things that gym owners face every single day. So this is relevant to you, whether you're actually in the fitness industry, maybe you own a gym or work at one, or maybe you're just fascinated by how software that's laser focused on one specific industry can be so successful.
Right.
Or even if you're just someone who loves hearing about these entrepreneurial journeys, how people identify a problem and create a solution.
Yeah.
That's what we're diving into today. We're not just looking at the features of the software itself. We're really trying to understand how they identified a real need in the market.
Right.
And how they built this practical solution, step by step to meet that need.
Think of it as a shortcut, right? Like we're cutting through all the noise and getting straight to the specific pain points that gyms have. And then we're going to see how they built this solution to address them.
Yeah.
Not just address them, but actually create a thriving business out of it.
Absolutely.
So we've got a couple of sources for this deep dive. We've got the PushPress website, which is a gold mine. It talks about their platform, all their features, and it really outlines their whole philosophy. And then we have this very candid interview with Dan where he walks us through their journey.
Fantastic.
And our mission here is to put it all together, synthesize it for you, and extract those core insights. Like, how did they figure out what that initial need was?
Right.
What was it like in those early days when they were building the solution?
Yeah.
How did they handle all those challenges that come with, starting a company and trying to grow it? And what's the driving force behind PushPress in this very specific market?
Right.
And always, always keeping that focus on the gym owners and the members.
Right.
The people who are actually using it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The story really begins with Dan's own background.
Okay.
So he was a coder back in the early 2000s, and then he did something pretty interesting. He opened his own gym around 2010.
Interesting. So he went from coding to the gym world.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that he didn't just approach it as someone who loves fitness, right?
Right.
He brought that engineer's mindset with him.
I see it.
So he started noticing all these inefficiencies, all these clunky software options that were out there, and he thought there has to be a better way to do this.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Someone with that kind of technical background would definitely see those inefficiencies.
Right. And he even mentions in the interview that as soon as he opened his gym, almost immediately he was frustrated with the existing software options.
Great.
He described them as outdated and just not aligned with how modern gyms actually work. He even tried to put together his own system using WordPress at first.
Wow.
It's funny, isn't it? It's often those personal frustrations that end up leading to the most innovative solutions.
Absolutely. I mean, when you experience the problem firsthand, you're so much more motivated to find a better way.
Totally. And this wasn't just him being annoyed in private, right? Other gym owners saw what he was trying to do and they started asking him about it.
That's interesting. So it resonated with other people too.
Yeah, that organic interest, that word of mouth within the community, that was a big early sign that he was onto something valuable.
It's like the market was telling him there was a demand for a better solution.
Exactly. It wasn't just his own experience. There was a wider need for a solution that was truly designed for managing a gym. And he also tells this really relatable story about dealing with payment processing for his gym.
Oh, yeah. That can be a nightmare.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
He spent forever negotiating a good rate. He finally thought he got it. And then he realized they were overcharging him.
Classic.
And, with his software background, he just saw this huge disconnect between the technology that was available and what gym owners actually needed in the real world.
Right.
So it really sparked this passion in him to find a better solution. He saw all this time and energy being wasted on these administrative tasks that could be so much easier with the right software.
So it wasn't just about building software for him. It was about solving these real, tangible problems that gym owners were struggling with every day.
Exactly. And he talks about how a lot of the existing software options were trying to be everything to everyone.
Oh, I see.
They wanted to cater to CrossFit boxes, MMA studios, yoga studios, you name it.
The classic one-size-fits-all approach.
And as a result, they ended up being super complicated and didn't really serve anyone particularly well. And he makes this great analogy to the iPhone.
Okay.
You've got the core operating system, but the real power is in being able to customize it with apps that are specific to what you need.
Right.
So he had this vision of gym management software that was similarly modular and adaptable to different types of fitness businesses.
That makes a lot of sense. So they've identified a problem. They've got this vision for a solution. What were those early days like when they actually started building PushPress?
So the interview really dives into the challenges they faced, especially when it came to getting funding.
The eternal struggle of the startup world.
Right. And Dan is very honest about the years they spent pitching to venture capitalists, getting rejected over and over again.
It's tough out there for early stage companies.
It really is. And he admits that as first-time founders, they didn't really know how to pitch their idea properly.
What do you mean?
They were so passionate about the problem, but they weren't communicating the business potential effectively to investors who weren't in the fitness world.
I see. So their passion wasn't translating into a compelling business case.
Exactly. And he even jokes about initially thinking VCs were just, throwing money around like gamblers.
That's fake.
But it took them a lot of pitches to realize that investors are looking for something very specific.
What kind of things?
They want a clear business model, a solid understanding of how big the market is, and real evidence that the company can grow significantly.
That makes sense. It's not just about being excited about an idea. It's about showing that it can actually become a successful business.
It's a huge lesson for any entrepreneur. Even if your idea is brilliant, you have to be able to sell it, to explain its value to people who might invest in it.
Absolutely. And, one thing that comes up again and again in the interview is this feeling that they were seeing an opportunity that a lot of other people just weren't recognizing.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about how difficult it was to compete with the big players that were already out there, like MindBody, and how frustrating it was that they couldn't get their vision across.
Right.
But he also says something really interesting. If everyone can immediately see the value in something, it's probably not that unique or valuable anymore.
That's a good point.
The real innovation, the real opportunity, often lies in seeing something that others are missing or underestimating.
It's like finding those hidden gems that everyone else is overlooking.
Exactly. And, it's inspiring to hear about their perseverance. He talks about being practically laughed out of VC meetings for years.
Yeah, what?
And there's this one story about an investor who gave them specific milestones to hit. First $10,000 in monthly recurring revenue, then $100,000.
Oh, okay.
And then even after they reached those goals, the investor still didn't invest.
Oh, that's rough. That'd be so demoralizing.
It would be, but it kind of fueled them. He talks about developing this chip on their shoulder mentality.
Like they had something to prove.
Exactly. And there's even this funny story about him driving past the house of an investor who had rejected them. Let's just say he wasn't exactly sending good vibes their way.
I can imagine. So if they weren't getting venture capital in those early years, how did they actually fund the development and growth of PushPress?
They were incredibly resourceful. They had to bootstrap the entire operation.
Bootstrapping, for those who aren't familiar, is essentially building a company with very limited resources, often using your own funds or revenue generated by the business itself.
Exactly. And Dan highlights these two really creative and effective tactics that they used.
Okay, tell me about them.
The first one was a partnership with a weightlifting coach.
A weightlifting coach?
Yeah, they created this high-quality poster demonstrating proper weightlifting technique.
Interesting.
And they offered it to gyms and coaches for free, but charged for shipping.
Okay.
And believe it or not, that actually ended up being a pretty significant revenue stream for them in those early days.
Wow, so it wasn't just about the money.
Right. It also subtly got their brand name into gyms, right where their target audience was.
That's clever. It's like a product that gives real value to their audience while also marketing their software business.
Exactly. And then the second tactic was creating a dedicated workout timer app.
A workout timer?
Yeah. Chris, the co-founder, took the lead on the design and they outsourced the development. But the real genius was getting well-known CrossFit figures to record the voice prompts for the timer.
Oh, wow.
So it quickly became hugely popular within the CrossFit community.
That's smart marketing.
It was. At its peak, it was being used for 1 million workouts a month.
That's incredible.
They even experimented with running ads on the timer, which generated a decent amount of revenue for quite a while, enough to really help fund the development of the main PushPress software.
Wow, so this free timer was actually bringing in $20,000 to $30,000 a month. That's impressive.
It is, and it shows how well they understood the gym community. They weren't just building software in a vacuum.
Yeah.
They were actively engaging with their potential users, giving them something valuable with these side projects, and building brand awareness within their niche.
Right. It wasn't all smooth sailing, though, was it?
No, it wasn't. Dan actually talks about a point around 2017 where he was seriously considering giving up on PushPress altogether.
Really?
Yeah. He was thinking about just focusing on his original gym business.
That's a big decision.
It was. He was essentially working multiple jobs, and it just felt like the software might never really become sustainable.
So what changed his mind?
Well, they had a couple hundred paying clients by that point, so there was definitely a need, and they were getting some traction.
But it still wasn't enough to support him financially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It highlights how tough it can be to build a software as a service business.
Right. You can have users, but it takes time to reach that point where it's actually profitable.
Right. And he specifically credits his co-founders for talking him out of quitting.
They must have really believed in the vision.
They did. They gave him the encouragement he needed to keep going.
And it's a testament to his own resilience, too, that underlying belief that if you keep pushing, you can eventually make things happen.
And then, of course, came the global pandemic, COVID-19.
Which completely upended so many industries.
It did. But for PushPress, it actually became a major catalyst for growth.
Really? How so?
Dan credits a few key things. First, he had a major mindset shift, inspired by a mentor who told him, never waste a good crisis.
That's a great piece of advice.
It is. It encouraged them to be proactive, to look for opportunities even amidst all the chaos.
And it just so happened that they had released a completely free version of their software right before the pandemic hit.
Wow, talk about timing.
Right. And it wasn't entirely intentional, but it turned out to be incredibly fortunate.
It did. And more importantly, they really leaned into supporting the gym community, whether those gyms were already using PushPress or not.
That's awesome.
They offered financial grants. They became advocates for the industry. They even started a podcast.
So they really positioned themselves as a partner, helping gyms navigate this incredibly difficult time.
Exactly. They weren't just focused on selling their product.
And I bet that generated a lot of goodwill in the fitness community.
It did. By focusing on helping their target audience when they needed it most, they inadvertently boosted their brand reputation and attracted a wave of new users.
It's a classic win-win. They helped gyms during a crisis, and in return, their business grew.
Exactly. It really validated their customer-centric approach. So then, fast forward a bit, and they finally secured a significant investment from Will at Mucker Capital.
Okay, so what changed? What allowed them to close that Series A funding round?
Well, by late 2020, PushPress was in a much stronger position.
Makes sense.
They had reached a significant level of annual recurring revenue. Dan mentions it was around $2 million.
Okay.
The free product had brought in a lot of new users, and they had built this strong, authentic brand as a company that really cared about gym owners.
So they had the numbers to back up their vision?
Exactly. Their financial metrics were much more attractive to investors. Although Dan does say that he thinks they might have gotten a slightly lower valuation compared to some other companies at the time.
Interesting. He also mentioned that they didn't really know the ins and outs of raising capital. They kind of stumbled into that first funding round through their existing network.
It happens more often than you might think. Even with a solid business, navigating the world of venture capital can be tricky.
It's a whole different game.
It is. And, Dan's initial hesitation about taking on investors probably played a role, too. He had seen other companies prioritize rapid growth over customer value, and he didn't want to do that. So they waited until they had a strong foundation before actively seeking outside investment. It seems like since then, they've continued to evolve and grow. They've been involved in SaaS-focused academies. Dan himself has been learning from other experienced founders, and they've kept reinvesting in their team and in strategic thinking.
It sounds like they're really committed to continuous learning and improvement.
Absolutely. And Dan emphasizes how important it is to be adaptable, to keep learning new things, especially about marketing and sales as the company matures.
Right. And he talks about the value of mentors and having a strong network of peers. Those are so important for navigating the challenges of growth.
They are. Now, let's talk about the PushPress platform itself. The website gives a really comprehensive overview of all its features.
It's clearly designed to be a one-stop shop for managing a gym.
Exactly. It's all about simplifying those day-to-day tasks that gym owners have to deal with.
Like what?
Well, things like billing and payment processing.
Okay.
They have integrations with services like Stripe, which makes things so much easier. Then there's member management. They automate the onboarding process and track all the data. And then, of course, there's class scheduling.
I see.
It's all about taking those time-consuming tasks off the gym owner's plate.
So they can focus on what really matters, which is helping their members.
Precisely. And they also have these add-on products specifically for growth.
Like what?
Things like tools for lead generation, SEO-optimized websites, automated messaging, and features for boosting member retention.
So they're covering all the bases, both attracting new members and keeping existing members happy.
Exactly. And then there's the train section of the platform.
Okay, what's that all about?
It's focused on enhancing the member experience.
Makes sense.
So there's a branded mobile app for members to track their workouts, reserve classes, and engage with the gym community.
Okay.
They also have tools for creating custom workout programs and even access to premium fitness content from partners.
It really does seem like they've thought about everything, the entire life cycle of a gym business.
They have. And throughout the website, they emphasize that the platform was built by gym owners for gym owners.
Which brings us back to Dan's initial frustrations. He was trying to solve his own problems, and he ended up creating a solution for a whole industry.
And that's their key differentiator. They're not trying to be everything to everyone. They're focused on providing a specific set of features that gyms actually need and will use.
Dan also talks about their economic model. He describes PushPress as a vertical SaaS platform.
Right. And for those who might not know, vertical SaaS is software designed for a specific industry, in this case, the fitness industry.
Okay.
And Dan's view is that the potential for a vertical SaaS company goes way beyond just the revenue from the software itself.
Interesting.
He sees it as an opportunity to address all sorts of related needs that gym owners have. Anything on their profit and loss statement that can be digitized, systematized, or even outsourced.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it.
It's about becoming more than just a software provider. It's about becoming a comprehensive solution provider for a specific industry.
And he used this great analogy saying that gym owners often want one throat to choke.
Yeah, I remember that.
Meaning they want a single, trusted partner who can handle all the complicated stuff.
Exactly. So Dan's long-term vision for PushPress includes expanding into areas like insurance, payroll, employee benefits, business banking, even equipment servicing.
Wow, so they're really aiming to become a one-stop shop for everything a gym needs.
Exactly. And he argues that the total market size isn't just the number of gyms multiplied by the software subscription price.
Right.
It's the entire scope of their operational expenses.
That's a whole different way of thinking about market size.
It is. And it comes back to their understanding of their customers' pain points. They're not just selling software. They're trying to help gym owners focus on what they love, which is helping people get fit.
And Dan also highlights their approach to customer support. He sees it as a crucial part of their strategy.
Right. For him, customer support is not just a cost, it's an investment. He believes in overstaffing, training, and empowering the support team to provide exceptional service.
Interesting.
His argument to investors was that this investment in support would lead to more loyal customers, lower churn rates, and more referrals.
So it's not just about fixing problems, it's about building relationships and creating advocates.
Exactly. Happy customers are your best salespeople.
And he even mentioned a unique way of onboarding new engineers. They spend time in customer support.
Wow.
So they can see firsthand how their work impacts the end users.
That's brilliant. It creates empathy and a customer-centric mindset across the entire company.
Right. And as they've grown to almost 100 employees, they've managed to maintain that customer obsession.
That's impressive. And Dan credits their strong mission and shared passion for helping gym owners as key factors in sustaining that culture.
He also talked about the importance of content creation, especially building his own personal brand on platforms like Instagram.
Right. It's a way to differentiate himself and the company, especially since he's a gym owner himself.
He can connect with their audience on a personal level.
Exactly. And he recognizes that people do a lot of research online these days, including on social media.
So it's about being present where your customers are.
Right. And he believes in putting a face to the brand, especially in the small business world, where trust is so important.
He even mentioned a mentor who constantly put out valuable content and how it built a sense of connection.
It's about consistent communication, sharing their values, and building trust over time.
He also sees it as a way to leverage the reach of social media without relying solely on expensive advertising.
Absolutely. It's a powerful way to get your message out there organically.
And while he admits it wasn't always easy for him, he recognized it as a necessary step as a leader.
It's interesting how many founders are now embracing personal branding as part of their overall strategy.
It adds a layer of authenticity and connection that can be really powerful.
When people feel like they know the person behind the company, they're more likely to trust and support that company.
Now, as a leader, Dan has gone through his own evolution. He's become more decisive and confident in his decision-making.
That's a common journey for founders. As they gain experience, they become more comfortable taking charge.
He still values input from others, but he also recognizes that sometimes he needs to make the call.
Right. And he's actively working on improving his financial and operational skills, which is a great sign. He's always looking to grow.
Now, let's talk about the mission of PushPress. It started broadly, about making the world fitter.
And it's evolved into a more focused statement about helping gyms become better businesses.
That clarity of mission is so important for guiding a company.
It is. Dan talked about the need to distill big ideas into concise statements that resonate with everyone.
The current mission is really about empowering gym owners to succeed, knowing that their success will contribute to a healthier world.
And he shared a really interesting vision for the future of the fitness industry.
What was that?
He sees community and solving the problem of loneliness as key drivers for gym attendance.
That's an interesting perspective.
It is. He believes that the social and emotional benefits of belonging to a gym are just as important as the physical benefits.
So it's not just about getting fit, it's about connecting with people.
Exactly. And he sees huge potential for growth if the industry can tap into that need for connection.
And when asked about how he wants PushPress to be remembered, he didn't talk about personal legacy. He wants to build a multi-generational company.
It's about creating something that lasts, something that continues to provide value long after he's gone.
Okay, let's recap. What were some of the most significant aha moments or surprising facts that stood out to you?
Well, for me, it was seeing how Dan's personal experiences shaped the entire vision of PushPress. It wasn't just a business opportunity. It was a solution to a problem he's personally facing. That authenticity is really powerful.
Absolutely. And I was really impressed by their early bootstrapping efforts. The poster, the timer app, those are really clever ways to generate revenue and get their name out there.
And their resilience in the face of all those rejections from investors is inspiring. They never gave up on their vision.
And the way they pivoted during the pandemic, focusing on support and community, was a great example of how doing the right thing can actually lead to business success.
So for our listener, think about your own areas of interest. Are there problems that are being overlooked? Could a deep understanding of a specific community reveal unmet needs and opportunities for innovation?
And this story also raises a question about funding. It's important to have a great idea, but you also need to be able to communicate it effectively to investors. However, PushPress also shows that bootstrapping can be a viable path to success, especially if you build strong relationships with your customers.
If you want to learn more about PushPress, definitely check out their website. You can also find the full interview with Dan on YouTube. And if you're interested in the broader strategies they used, look into the concept of vertical SaaS and other companies that have focused on niche markets.
The story of PushPress really shows the power of understanding a market, building a solution with empathy, and persevering through challenges.
Absolutely. It's a great example of how to build a successful business from the ground up.
Hopefully this deep dive has given you a new perspective on the power of understanding a market from the inside out.